Welcome to Physics World. Today we discuss about chapter 2, friction. In the last chapter, force, we discussed about what is the importance of force and how it is influencing our life. And we have also discussed about types of forces. In those types of forces, friction also we have discussed. And we understand that friction is very important in our life and daily activities. With the friction only, I am able to speak. I can walk. I can ride on the boat. And any vehicle is in motion can be stopped. So without friction, daily activities are not at all possible. In this chapter, we discuss about in detail about friction. And we will also discuss about in which cases friction is advantageous to us and which case friction is harmful to us also. Then what are you waiting for? Let us start the class. Now, we have to know about the definition of friction. Before going to the definition of friction, let me explain you about how the friction is applied in different cases. See the first example. Here's a table. On the table, there is a book. You can imagine it is a book or it is a block. Now, a force F is applied on the block. Now, the block is not moving. Or, you apply the force on the block. Block started moving. And at one point of time, the block stopped. See, this is the distance traveled with the block. S is the distance traveled with the block in this direction. Now the question is, when you apply the force, why the block has moved some distance and then stopped? Why can't it move for infinite amount of time? The answer is simple, because of friction. Now coming to this example, a moving car. So car is in motion. Now, the driver who is sitting on the driving seat applied brakes and he wanted to stop the car. Yes, of course, after traveling some more distance, the car will be stopped. So, do you think that only because of applying the braking, the car has stopped? No. There is another force acting which is opposite to motion of the car, and that force is friction. Here also, the block is stopped after traveling some distance. It's only because of an opposing force is acting to this applied force, and the opposing force is again friction. So, friction is an opposing force and which opposes the relative motion of the body. So, let me write the definition. It is an opposing force which opposes relative motion of a body. So here all these words you understand. But coming to this relative motion, quickly after 2 to 3 minutes later, I will explain you what is relative motion means. So come back to examples again. So by the definition saying that opposing force, these two forces are opposing the motion of the bodies. That's why those two forces are called friction. Let me explain you more about friction by drawing a free body diagram. See, this is a block which is on the surface, and this block is stable like this. Now what are the forces acting on the block? Tell me, because last chapter 1 we have discussed. Yes, one force acting downward, that is weight of the body, W, and there is another force at the point of contact of the block and the surface, and acting in upward direction, normal to the point of contact, and this is normal force. So these two forces are acting and the block is at rest. When I say block is at rest, this upward force is equal to downward force. Now see what will happen. Now I'll apply a forward force like this. I can say forward force, I can say external force. So immediately our common sense says that the block has to move, but the block is not moving. Why? Because to this force there is another force acting opposite to it, and that force is again friction. That's the reason why still the block is at rest. So the block is at rest along vertically, the block is at rest along horizontally. So vertically the block is at rest because normal force is balanced by weight, implies the net force acting on the block is 0, n minus w equals 0. Similarly, horizontally, capital F equals to small f, applied force equal to friction, implies the net force capital F minus small f equal to 0 again. Due to vertical direction and horizontal direction, net forces are 0. We can say the block is in equilibrium state. So here our point of contact is that this friction is the opposing force which opposing this force. That's why the body is not moving in the horizontal direction. So we understand about what is friction and how it is applied in the different types of objects. Now let me explain you about types of friction. Yes, friction types of friction exist? Yes, they are existing. Here basically we have two types of frictions. Number one is static friction. Number two is sliding friction. Static friction and sliding friction. First of all, we discuss about static friction and then we move on to sliding. So how can we start? Take an example again. There is a surface, say it is a ground. It's a ground surface. On the ground surface there is a heavy block is placed. You can imagine a book also. It's a block. Now concentrate carefully. I have applied force on the block. Say the force F equals to 1 Newton. 1 Newton I have applied on the block. Block doesn't move. Why? Because there is a friction acting in the opposite direction which is equal to the force but opposite to it. So same 1 Newton applied here. So as I applied 1 Newton, same friction force developed 1 Newton. Now as the block is not moving, I increase the force to 1.5 Newtons. Still the block does not move. Why? Because still this frictional force is increased to 1.5 Newton. Now increase the force to 2 Newtons. No, block is not moving because friction force is also increased proportionally to the applied force. So now the friction force becomes 2 Newtons. So this frictional force, what I am observing here, is acting, the block is at rest. Block is not moved. Now increase the force to 2.1 Newton. 2.1 Newton, just 0.1 Newton is added. Then what happened, Immediately the block started moving. So static friction is the friction acted when the body is at rest. Static means rest, we can say. But specifically if you want to tell you what is static friction, we can say that it is the frictional force which is generated at the impending motion of the body. impending motion. Impending motion means just started motion. So here, when the block is just started the motion at force equal to 2.1 Newton. So at this force only the block started its motion. So the friction is existing at that situation. So static friction is always opposed to the impending motion of the body. Means just started motion of the body. Okay. So write the definition here. It opposes impending motion of a body. Impending motion means just started motion. So this static friction existing as soon as the 2.1 Newton force applied, the block just started its motion. So at that moment, the friction acting is static friction. So you can take two ways. One is static friction is friction when the body is acting at rest. Static friction is a friction which opposes the impending motion of a body. Just started motion of a body. Yes, you understand the static friction. Now, going to the sliding friction. Before going to sliding friction, let me tell you more clear about the static frictions. Take another example. This is a table and this is the pulley. It's called pulley, and there is a block, a big block, wider and long block, and over this block a string is connected, and the string is moving over the pulley, and the string is now connected to a, you can say, a weighing pan like this. Okay, so this is pulley, this is called Atwood machine. Simply we can say table, a block is placed on table with pulley, but whole the system is called Atwood machine. Now what happened, this block is connected to string with this weighing pan, and here we have added some weight. Some weight is added on the pan. It's a pan. Now what happens? Block is not moving. Block is at rest state. So don't you think that no force is applied in the block? No, the force is applied, because the force is applied by placing the weights on the pan. So the force is applied in this direction, F force. F force is applied in this direction, but the block is not moving. The reason is a frictional force acting between the block and the table, and that frictional force is equal to the applied force. So this friction is static friction. Okay, when I keep on adding the weights on the pan, at one moment the block starts moving. So the last force, last weight what you added on the pan, as soon as the body started its motion, at that moment the friction of what is acting is also called static friction. That's why I told it's the impending motion, opposing the impending motion. Suppose I have added another weight on this block 1. So this is block 2. Now what happened to this block 1? Does it move towards left side or it doesn't move? Obviously it doesn't move, because weight is added, more weight to this block 1 plus block 2 system. So obviously you have to add more weights to the pan. Now when you add more weights to the pan, yes, the block 1 start moving, but wait, here you have two cases. One is block 1 will move with block 2, or block 1 will move and block 2 falls. How it is possible? Let me explain you here. Whenever the weights adds on the pan and the force is acting to this block 1, there is equal and opposite force acts at this point of contacting surfaces between block 1 and block 2. This is called action-reaction forces. If this is action force, that is reaction force. So this reaction force will act on the block 2. Therefore, when this block 1 is moving towards left, block 2 will move and fall. But what happens here? To avoid that falling, there is another force act between block 2 and block 1, and that force is our force, friction. So this is the friction which is stopping the block 2 fall away from the block 1. And this friction is equal and opposite this force, so that it cancels this force, and then block 2 becomes stable on the block 1. So that when you add the weights to the pan, block 1 plus block 2 both combinedly will move in the forward direction. So friction is helping us here. Now, if friction is not there, suppose the top surface of the block is slippery. Suppose a glass surface is there on the top. Now friction force is less. Now when the block 1 moves, obviously block 2 will fall. So whenever the block 1 plus block 2 both combinedly move in the forward direction, you have to understand that between the frictional force, between the two surfaces, the frictional force is helping the block 2 not to fall from the block 1. So this friction force is what called static friction. Generally, if you see, when the buses are moving on the road, and when you want to keep your luggage, you can keep the luggage on the top surface, top of the bus. And when you keep the luggage on top of the bus, you don't keep the luggage as it is like that. You will tie with the rope. Why you tie with the rope? What is the reason behind that? Because if you don't tie the luggages with the rope to the bus, when the bus moves in the forward direction, immediately the luggage will move in the backward direction, and there is a possibility of falling of luggage from the bus. That's why you tie. When you tie with the rope, then the luggage will fix with the bus, and so that bus and luggage both move in the forward direction. And when you tie with the rope, the friction force increases. Static friction increases. So static friction is the friction acting when the body is at rest. Static friction is the friction which opposes the impending motion of the body. Now sliding friction. Sliding friction acts when the body is in motion. Suppose a car is moving on the road. And the friction acting between the wheels of the car and the road is sliding friction. So sliding itself says that the body is in motion. So this is the car which is moving in the forward direction, say towards right side. Then the frictional force acting between wheels of the car and the road is sliding friction. So these sliding frictions, of course, they are important when the body is in motion, but they are not that much of larger comparing to static friction. Because if the sliding friction is large enough to your applied force, then you can't move fast using your car. You can't move fast using your bike. So as you're moving faster in bikes and different vehicles, it simply proves that sliding friction is less comparing to static friction. So if I say F static friction is always greater than sliding friction. This sliding friction is also called kinetic friction. Let me give an example to you. Suppose think that you are standing on a road surface and you have a big rock in front of you, and you want to roll the big rock on the surface. So you have applied force on the rock. So big rock, heavy mass, capital M, and you are here and you are pushing the rock on the road. Pushing. The rock is not moving. Still applied more amount of force. Still the rock is not moving. See, when you're increasing your force, even gradually, the static friction between the rock and the road surface also increases. Suppose you applied of 20 newtons of force. then the frictional force, if this rock is not moving, the static friction is also 20 Newton. Suppose you apply 30 Newtons of force on the rock and the rock is not moving, that means static friction is also 30 Newton. So static friction keep on increases. But once the rock starts moving, it's rolling on the road, then the sliding friction between the rock and the road surface is less. As it is less, that's why the rock is moving in the forward direction. So static is always greater than sliding. As you have two types of frictions, now you have to know that what are the factors influencing the friction, affecting the friction. And we have three types of factors. Number one, type of surface. Type of surface obviously is a very important factor, I can say. As we know that rough surfaces have more amount of friction than soft surfaces. Rough surfaces, more friction. Soft surface, less friction. So these two lines itself says that yes, friction depends upon the surfaces. Now the question is, why the rough surface have more friction? Let me explain you. So if you see a table surface, you feel that is a very fine and smooth table, and you kept a book on the table. It's a book now. Now feel that okay, book surface is smooth, surface the table is also smooth, but actually those are not smooth. With our naked eye, we are seeing the surface of the book and table, we believe that both the surfaces are smooth. But actually if you see using microscope, high resolving microscope, then you understand that each surface, say table surface, I am drawing table surface now, table surface, suppose this table surface when I am drawing, the surface actually not even, not soft, it will be like this. You have up and downs on the surfaces. You have up and downs on the surfaces. So this is called uneven surface. Actually it looks like smooth, but actually it's an uneven surface. Now see the book bottom surface, but the book bottom surface is also uneven. So now book I'm drawing here. Like this. So this is book bottom surface, this is table top surface. As the two surfaces are uneven, they are locked, internally locked. So see this peak you are seeing, this peak stopped with this peak, or this peak stopped with this peak, so that both are interlocked. And because of interlocking mechanism, the frictional force is developed. So when you have these rough surfaces, uneven surfaces like that, friction is always more. Then what we do to reduce the friction, you will smoothen the surface. So persons try to smoothen the surface so that they will get less friction. Suppose if you take a carpenter and carpenter making a table, so he uses a special type of machine with which he want to smooth the surface. Many times he will rub with that machine on the surface of the table so that you get the smooth. When you get the smooth, he can reduce up to 80 to 90% the uneven surfaces. But you can't give guarantee that 90% smooth surfaces you can get, because frictions exist everywhere. Of course, in somewhere friction is more, somewhere friction is less. So in that way, the type of surface depends. Take another example. Road versus ice surface. Generally, if you're walking on the road, you feel very comfortable, easily walk on the road. But if I give a 2 meters, 2 into 2 meters ice cube to you and ask you to walk on the ice cube, if you want to try to walk on the ice cube surface, you may fall. Not may, yeah, I'm sure you will fall. And you won't feel that much of comfortability how you're walking on the road. What is the reason behind that? The reason is this thing. Road is rough surface, so more amount of friction between your foot and the road surface. That's why you can stably walk. Friction is more. But on the ice surface, you know that on the surface of ice you have water layer, huge amount of water layers will be there. So as soon as you put your foot on the ice cube and you wanted to walk, because of water, the surface becomes slippery and you fall on the ice cube. So that's why friction is very important for our walking. So this is the first factor. Now go to second factor. Second factor is weight of the body. Weight of the body. How it depends? Yes, I will tell you. See, so say this is a surface. On the surface you have the block, and this block has point of contact, and this point of contact, upward force is normal, downward force is weight. You know all these two forces. Now you have applied a force F. Immediately a frictional force F will be there, as we know that. But if this weight, suppose the box has weight of 2 kg, then N is also having 2 kg, because N equal to W, so N is also having 2 kg. So if you want to move that block, maybe you can apply 2 kg of force, or you can apply 3 kg of force, the block moves. But if you increase the weight, suppose the weight of the box now 5 kg. Just understand, now what happened to normal? It is also become 5 kg, because N equal to W. When it becomes 5 kg, what happened to force? You have to apply more amount of force to move the block. When you increase the force, what happened to friction? Friction also increases, as we discussed earlier. So we can say friction depends on weight. So more the weight, more the friction is generated. A third factor, area of contact. We should know that whether it is affecting the friction or not. So to understand this, let us do a small activity. You have a block. Tie the block using strings, and with the string tie to a spring balance. A spring balance. Okay, and here you have a holder, and you can apply the force. You can use your hand here and pull. Now this block is on a surface. So what is the advantage of this activity? Because inside you have a spring. You have a spring. The spring is covered with a scale. That scale, it's a scale. That scale is having Newton scale. It is also having kg scale. So that when you apply the force by pulling the spring of the spring balance, the pointer slides on the scale, with which you can know that how much amount of newtons of force you are applying, or how much amount of kg of mass you are applying. It's a very good activity. So suppose you pulled, say at one point of force, F equals to 20 Newton. F equals 20 Newton, the block started moving. That means the amount of friction acting between block and the surface is 20 Newton, because it's a sliding friction. Because it's a static friction. Here the block is placed vertically up. Now see the second case. In the second case, you keep the same block, but now horizontally. Same block, but horizontal. Now again tie with the strings and tie to the spring balance. Okay, so you can apply the hand, you could put the hand and apply the force. Same way I told in the earlier case. You have scale here, Newton and kg. The same activity there also. You apply the force. So at one point of time, like force F equals 2, the block started moving. Now the question is, here the force is more or the force is same like previous case? What you say? Yes, you are correct. Friction force depends upon the weight of the body and types of surfaces only, not based on area of contact. How much of area it is contacted, it doesn't depend on it. Whether it is vertically stand, whether horizontally stand on the surface. It depends upon weight only. And here both the cases, the block has same weight. Therefore, when you pull the block in the horizontal direction using spring balance, how much of force applied, the same amount of force you apply here also. So here also you have the same friction. So this demonstration tells you that friction doesn't depend upon area of contact. Yes, we all agree that friction is necessary. So by watching this video, you get to know that yes, friction is very important in our daily life, and without friction nothing is there. Let me tell you two more examples how the friction is very much useful in our life. Using friction, you can produce heat. Yes. So a simple example is your palms together. When rub the palms together for some time, what you get? Heat. So this heat is generated because of friction. And second example you can take, it develops necessary force to turning vehicle. What this point means, I will explain you. When you are driving your car on the highway roads, or when you are on the bike and riding the bike on the highway roads, there is a circular turn. Suddenly circular turn is coming in front of you. So you have to take a circular turn. And the condition is that you should not reduce your speed. With the same speed you want to take a circular turn. Yes, you're in the car, you're a car driver, you've taken the same speed in the circular turn. And without any effect, you have succeeded in taking the turn and you have moved away from the circular turn. How it is possible? Sometimes when the vehicles are taking circular turns, they're not in the control and they will move away from the path like this. So circular turn, and it's a car, suppose it's a car and it is going the circular turn. Sometimes they're not in control, they'll move away from the path, means they may go out of the path. It leads to accidents. But by avoiding the accidents, the car drivers and the persons are practiced to take a circular turn with the same speed. Then which force is actually protecting you to not move away from the track and avoiding the accidents? And that force is none other than friction. Friction provides a necessary centripetal force. Centripetal force means the force acting towards the center of the circular turn. So that force pulls you. The centripetal force pulls the car, so that the car, when taking a circular turn, should not move away from the track. So in that way it helps you also. So to nowadays what happening on the highway roads, to give more protection to vehicles, they are using banking of roads. Now what is banking of roads? You will learn in higher classes. So how to reduce friction? Yes, sometimes friction is really helpful to all of us, but sometimes we have to reduce friction to protect some of the parts of a body. So the first one, how to reduce the friction. Earlier we discussed that softening surfaces. By softening the surfaces, you can reduce the friction so that the uneven surface will be reduced. And second, Suppose you are playing a carom board. You are playing caroms on the carom board, and you feel that the coins are not moving in a specific direction what you are expecting. Then what we do? Use some powder on the board, which will softens the motion of the coins. Then when you hit the coin with a striker, it will go a specific direction and go to the hole of the board. So there, when you sprinkle the powder on the board, it softens the surface of the board. In that way you are reducing the friction. So using powders like carom board. Now third one, which is very important thing. This is very important because in machines you have a very large number of small wheels, and these wheels rotates, making the big wheels to rotate so that the vehicle move in the forward direction. A machine comes into a walking condition. So sometimes what happened, suppose you're using a machine for 1 year or 2 years, then what happened, inside parts will go for wear and tearing effect. Wear and tearing effect means what? One wheel hit by another wheel, because of hitting for a long time, they scratch it together and there is a possibility of stopping of wheels, and machine doesn't work. Like, take a simple example I'll give you. Say if you take the door, the doors are attached to the wall using hinges. So if you are a newly constructed house, then you can see when you move, when you push the door, pull the door, you won't get any sound. But after 6 months, when you push or pull the door, you will get some noisy sound. Why? Because of huge amount of friction between the parts of the hinges. So what your mother or father will do, if to reduce the sound or to reduce the friction, they will use some oil. They apply some oil to the hinges. After applying the oil hinges for some time, then you move your door, it doesn't hear any noise. Similarly, machinery parts also, to work for longer time, they will use different lubricants. Lubricants like oil, grease, they'll apply to the wheels so that the oil or grease layer formed between the two wheels, and then the two wheels should not touch with each other, should not strike with each other, so that the longevity will be increased. Similarly, if you take a bicycle, that chain and teethed wheel, the chain and toothed wheel, between the chain and toothed wheel, sometimes if you go to cycle shop, that mechanic will apply some oil to it, so that the chain will be smoothened between the wheels, and you can cycle the bicycle quickly. So in that way you can reduce the friction. Sometimes friction is very necessary to us. As of course, from the beginning of the class I'm telling you, friction is very much necessary to us. Give me some more examples to you in the situations where friction is necessary to us. Suppose you are wearing a shoe and you are playing in the football ground, you are playing in the basketball ground. So those are the situations where you have to run frequently. When you want to run frequently, when your foot is placing, whenever the foot is placing on the surface of the ground, you have to get the stability. Then only you can run quickly. If you don't have the stability between the foot and the surface of the ground, then there is a possibility of slipping, and you will slip, fall on the ground. Many times happens this. That's why especially the players will wear a different type of shoes where you have huge amount of grooves at the sole, behind at the back side of the shoe. And say this is the shoe bottom surface, and the bottom surface is now cut, will be like this. See, have you observed this type of boxes like this? These are called grooves. So these grooves will protect you from slipping. how much of depth of the grooves you have. Like when the depth of the grooves increases, the grip of your foot with the ground surface also increases. Or another way I can say, they will airlock the shoe to the ground, so that you will get the stability and you can have fast running. That's if you go to the shoe shop also, whenever you have the big depth grooves at the sole of the shoe, then the shoe cost is also expensive. So always when you want to play in sports ground, remember, buy this type of shoes only to get the grip. You have fast running. In that you can increase the friction. And there is another one called threading. What is meant with threading? You have seen the tires of the wheels of cars, trucks, motorbikes, bicycles, etc. And if you see the tire, the front surface of the tire, say this is the front surface of the tire. The front surface of the tires have many types of shapes like this. Like MRF tires, CR tires, if you see, they have different types of cuttings on the surface with some depth also. Why they make like that? Why can't they make a softened tire? No, they can't. Because if they make a softened tire, if you apply the brakes, it's very dangerous. Because if you apply the brakes, the wheel does not rotate. Instead, it stops rotating and slides. Sliding is what is slippery, and there is a 99% possibility of accidents. That's why the different companies like MRF and CAT, they will create different types of tires with having longer depth grooves. This is called threading. Because of threading, when you apply the brakes, immediately it picks up the braking efficiency and brakes immediately. That's why when your vehicle tires are getting old and threads are removed, then please replace the old tire with a new tire, so that you can increase the friction and you can avoid the accidents.